You are listening to one of the sections of the book Untitled Tales 2. This book contains stories that are graded at level B1 and based on the vocabulary taught in different units of the book Oxford Word Skills Intermediate Vocabulary, 2nd edition. These stories help you learn English and memorize words better. You can listen to each story with 2 different accents, American and British. This method helps you recognize the pronunciation differences and improve your listening skill. I hope you enjoy listening to these stories. If you want to know more about the book Untitled Tales 2 and other books in this series, you can visit the website, Amazon, or other online bookstores and buy the printed or electronic versions of them. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and like this channel. Also share your comments and suggestions with us. We always appreciate hearing from you. Thank you for your support.
The Camping Trip. Based on Unit 90 of Oxford Word Skills, Intermediate, 2nd edition, Pleasure and Annoyance. The Camping Trip. Alice loved camping. It was her idea of heaven to spend a weekend in nature, away from the noise and stress of the city. She enjoyed the fresh air, the beautiful sights, and the peaceful atmosphere. She always felt a sense of happiness and pleasure when she was camping. She was very excited when her friend Bob invited her to join him and his family for a camping trip. She had never met Bob's family before, but she fancied him and hoped that they would get along well. She packed her bag and waited for Bob to pick her up. Bob arrived in his car, with his parents and his younger brother in the back seat. Alice greeted them and put her bag in the trunk. She sat next to Bob in the front seat and smiled. "Are you ready for some fun?" Bob asked. "Yes, indeed," Alice said. "I love camping. It's my favorite thing to do." "Me too," Bob said. "You're going to love this place. It's ideal for camping. There's a lake, a forest, and a mountain nearby." "Wow, that sounds amazing," Alice said. They drove for about an hour, chatting and listening to music. Alice felt comfortable and happy. She liked Bob's parents, who seemed friendly and kind. She also liked Bob's brother, who was quiet but polite. They arrived at the campsite and set up their tents. Alice helped Bob with his tent, while his parents and brother took care of theirs. They finished quickly and decided to explore the area. They walked around the lake, admiring the reflection of the sun on the water. They saw some ducks and fish swimming in the lake. They heard some birds singing in the trees. "This is so beautiful," Alice said. "I'm glad you like it," Bob said. They held hands and smiled at each other. They continued their walk and reached the forest. They saw some squirrels and rabbits running around. They smelled some flowers and mushrooms growing on the ground. They felt some breeze blowing through their hair. "This is so relaxing," Alice said. "I'm happy you feel that way," Bob said. They hugged and kissed each other. They kept walking and arrived at the mountain. They saw some rocks and cliffs rising above them. They heard some waterfalls and streams flowing down them. They felt some adrenaline pumping through their veins. "This is so exciting," Alice said. "I'm thrilled you think so," Bob said. They climbed and jumped over some rocks. They had a great time together, enjoying nature and each other's company. They felt a strong connection and attraction between them. They agreed that this was the best camping trip ever. They returned to their tents, feeling tired but satisfied. They decided to have a barbecue for dinner. Bob's parents prepared some meat and vegetables while Bob lit a fire. Alice helped with setting the table and serving the food. They ate their dinner, talking and laughing. Alice felt welcome and appreciated by Bob's family. She thanked them for inviting her and complimented them on their cooking. "We're glad you're here, Alice," Bob's mother said. "You're such a nice girl." "We appreciate your kindness, Alice," Bob's father said. "You're such a good friend." "We like you, Alice," Bob's brother said. "You're such a fun person." Alice blushed and smiled. They finished their dinner and decided to roast some marshmallows over the fire. Alice loved marshmallows, especially when they were warm and gooey. She took a stick and put a marshmallow on it. She held it over the fire, watching it turn brown. She was about to eat it, when she heard a loud noise behind her. She turned around and saw a bear standing on its hind legs, growling at them. She screamed. The others screamed too. They dropped their sticks and ran to their tents. The bear followed them, sniffing their food. Alice was terrified. She ran into Bob's tent, hoping that he would protect her. He ran after her, holding her hand. They zipped up the tent door and hid under a blanket. They heard the bear outside, tearing apart their food and making noises. They held each other tightly, hoping that the bear would go away soon. They wished that they had never come here. They realized that this was the worst camping trip ever. They tried to calm down and sleep, but they couldn't. They were too scared and nervous. They heard the bear all night long, roaming around their tents. They hoped that it would leave by morning. They prayed that they would survive. They expected that this would be the highlight of their trip, but it turned out to be the low light. They were fed up with the bear and its annoying behavior. They wanted to go home as soon as possible. They even thought that they would never go camping again. They repeated to themselves that everything would be okay. They tried not to let the bear get on their nerves. They wondered if this was a bad habit of the bear, or if it was just a coincidence. They felt upset and angry. They wished that they could have a word with the bear and tell it to go away. They wondered why the bear had to bother them. They thought that it was very rude and selfish of the bear. They wanted to say to the bear, "I'm sorry to bother you, but could you please leave us alone?" But they knew that the bear wouldn't listen or care. The bear was just hungry and curious. It was just doing what bears do. They had to respect the bear and its territory. They had to be patient and wait for the bear to leave. They had to be brave and strong. They had to stick together and support each other. They had to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. They had to make the best of a bad situation. They had to learn from this experience and grow from it. They had to remember this story and tell it to others. They had to laugh about it someday.
Thank you for being with us. Now listen to the story with my English accent. The Camping Trip. Based on Unit 90 of Oxford Word Skills, Intermediate, 2nd edition, Pleasure and Annoyance. The Camping Trip. Alice loved camping. It was her idea of heaven to spend a weekend in nature, away from the noise and stress of the city. She enjoyed the fresh air, the beautiful sights, and the peaceful atmosphere. She always felt a sense of happiness and pleasure when she was camping. She was very excited when her friend Bob invited her to join him and his family for a camping trip. She had never met Bob's family before, but she fancied him and hoped that they would get along well. She packed her bag and waited for Bob to pick her up. Bob arrived in his car, with his parents and his younger brother in the back seat. Alice greeted them and put her bag in the trunk. She sat next to Bob in the front seat and smiled. "Are you ready for some fun?" Bob asked. "Yes, indeed," Alice said. "I love camping. It's my favorite thing to do." "Me too," Bob said. You're going to love this place. It's ideal for camping. There's a lake, a forest, and a mountain nearby. Wow, that sounds amazing, Alice said. They drove for about an hour, chatting and listening to music. Alice felt comfortable and happy. She liked Bob's parents, who seemed friendly and kind. She also liked Bob's brother, who was quiet but polite. They arrived at the campsite and set up their tents. Alice helped Bob with his tent, while his parents and brother took care of theirs. They finished quickly and decided to explore the area. They walked around the lake, admiring the reflection of the sun on the water. They saw some ducks and fish swimming in the lake. They heard some birds singing in the trees. "This is so beautiful," Alice said. "I'm glad you like it," Bob said. They held hands and smiled at each other. They continued their walk and reached the forest. They saw some squirrels and rabbits running around. They smelled some flowers and mushrooms growing on the ground. They felt some breeze blowing through their hair. "This is so relaxing," Alice said. "I'm happy you feel that way," Bob said. They hugged and kissed each other. They kept walking and arrived at the mountain. They saw some rocks and cliffs rising above them. They heard some waterfalls and streams flowing down them. They felt some adrenaline pumping through their veins. "This is so exciting," Alice said. "I'm thrilled you think so," Bob said. They climbed and jumped over some rocks. They had a great time together, enjoying nature and each other's company. They felt a strong connection and attraction between them. They agreed that this was the best camping trip ever. They returned to their tents, feeling tired but satisfied. They decided to have a barbecue for dinner. Bob's parents prepared some meat and vegetables, while Bob lit a fire. Alice helped with setting the table and serving the food. They ate their dinner, talking and laughing. Alice felt welcome and appreciated by Bob's family. She thanked them for inviting her and complimented them on their cooking. "We're glad you're here, Alice," Bob's mother said. "You're such a nice girl." "We appreciate your kindness, Alice," Bob's father said. "You're such a good friend." "We like you, Alice," Bob's brother said. "You're such a fun person." Alice blushed and smiled. They finished their dinner and decided to roast some marshmallows over the fire. Alice loved marshmallows, especially when they were warm and gooey. She took a stick and put a marshmallow on it. She held it over the fire, watching it turn brown. She was about to eat it when she heard a loud noise behind her. She turned around and saw a bear standing on its hind legs, growling at them. She screamed. The others screamed too. They dropped their sticks and ran to their tents. The bear followed them, sniffing their food. Alice was terrified. She ran into Bob's tent, hoping that he would protect her. He ran after her, holding her hand. They zipped up the tent door and hid under a blanket. They heard the bear outside, tearing apart their food and making noises. They held each other tightly, hoping that the bear would go away soon. They wished that they had never come here. They realized that this was the worst camping trip ever. They tried to calm down and sleep, but they couldn't. They were too scared and nervous. They heard the bear all night long, roaming around their tents. They hoped that it would leave by morning. They prayed that they would survive. They expected that this would be the highlight of their trip, but it turned out to be the lowlight. They were fed up with the bear and its annoying behavior. They wanted to go home as soon as possible. They even thought that they would never go camping again. They repeated to themselves that everything would be okay. They tried not to let the bear get on their nerves. They wondered if this was a bad habit of the bear, or if it was just a coincidence. They felt upset and angry. They wished that they could have a word with the bear and tell it to go away. They wondered why the bear had to bother them. They thought that it was very rude and selfish of the bear. They wanted to say to the bear, "I'm sorry to bother you, but could you please leave us alone?" But they knew that the bear wouldn't listen or care. The bear was just hungry and curious. It was just doing what bears do. They had to respect the bear and its territory. They had to be patient and wait for the bear to leave. They had to be brave and strong. They had to stick together and support each other. They had to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. They had to make the best of a bad situation. They had to learn from this experience and grow from it. They had to remember this story and tell it to others. They had to laugh about it someday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please don't forget to subscribe
And like. Bye.